and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. India has reported the world's highest COVID-19 cases again as 414,000 people tested positive overnight. The country has also recorded 3,915 deaths in the past 24 hours. Here in Pakistan, the virus has claimed 140 lives and infected nearly 4,300 people overnight. Globally, there are more than 3.2 million fatalities and over 155 million cases so far. The Taliban have accused the Afghan government of genocide in the Helmand province. In a tweet, the group spokesperson Sohail Shaheen called the killing of civilians in the airstrikes a horrendous crime. He said the world and human rights organizations must take note of what he called the Helmand massacre. Iran has noted progress in the ongoing talks to revive the 2015 nuclear deal in Vienna. In a press briefing, the head of the presidential office said the complete lifting of sanctions is not out of reach. Mahmoud Vizai ruled out reports of disagreements, saying the steps taken so far are promising. In Brazil, at least 25 people, including a police officer, have been killed in a shootout in Rio de Janeiro. The incident took place during a police operation against drug traffickers. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. India has reported the world's highest COVID-19 cases again as 414,000 people tested positive overnight. The country also recorded 3,920 deaths in the past 24 hours. Globally, there are more than 3.2 million fatalities and over 155 million cases so far. More in this report. As India's COVID-19 crisis continues to worsen, Poland and the Netherlands and Switzerland have become the latest to send aid. The country's vaccination rate has fallen dramatically due to a lack of supplies and transport problems. With infection spreading from overcrowded cities to remote rural villages, more regional authorities are rolling out lockdowns. Amid the havoc, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is pushing ahead with a $1.8 billion parliament revamp, including a new home for the country's leader, while hospitals plead for the life-saving medical supplies.
We have been trying to find a hospital bed for the last 3 days, but failed. What should we do? We hoped the hospital would take us in, but we were told that they lacked oxygen and beds. What can we do?
The United States says it has administered nearly 252 million doses of vaccines and distributed over 324 million jabs. This comes as the World Health Organization warned of a new wave of COVID-19 in Africa due to the delayed supply of vaccine, a slow rollout, and new variants. Meanwhile, Russia has authorized a one-shot Sputnik Light version of its vaccine for use. The move could help vaccine supplies go further in countries with high infection rates.
Today are vaccines which are all well known. Today Sputnik Light joined the list. Our vaccines are based on the technology and platform which have been in use for dozens of years. They're up to date, and today our vaccines are the most reliable and among the safest. As one of the European specialists said, they are reliable as a Kalashnikov assault rifle.
England's chief medical officer Chris Whitty said COVID-19 is unlikely ever to be eradicated. He said the outlook for the pandemic remains pretty bleak in the medium term. Over in Japan, the government is seeking to extend the current state of emergency in Tokyo and 3 other prefectures until the end of May. In Pakistan, 140 more people have died from COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the death toll has risen to 18,677. The ministry said about 4,300 people tested positive for the virus overnight. The caseload has crossed 850,000, out of which more than 747,000 have recovered. The ministry said there are over 83,000 active cases in the country. It noted that more than 5,100 of them are critical patients. The Taliban have accused the Afghan government of genocide in the Helmand province. In a tweet, the group spokesperson Sohail Shaheen called the killing of civilians in airstrikes a horrendous crime. He said the world and human rights organizations must take note of what he called the Helmand massacre. But the Afghan Defense Ministry says it killed 8 Taliban, including 3 commanders, in the said airstrike. In a tweet, it said the Taliban deputy governor for Helmand and 2 other terrorists were injured. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the process of removing all contractors from Afghanistan is underway. Talking to reporters, Austin noted the contractors could renegotiate their contracts in the future. International Amnesty members staged a candlelit vigil in Portugal to highlight human rights abuses in India. The vigil was held ahead of the weekend summit between India and the European Union in the Portuguese city of Porto. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will participate remotely due to the worsening COVID-19 crisis in India. Amnesty officials called on the European leaders to urge Modi to respect human rights. They said critics of the Indian government from every walk of life are being suppressed.
What we want is the European leaders to call to the Prime Minister Modi to respect human rights and to respect human rights defenders. Not only respect them, but also count with them on the solutions we need to deliver in India to address the COVID-19 tragedy that we are seeing right now happening there.
Iran has noted progress in the ongoing talks in Vienna to revive the 2015 nuclear deal. In a press briefing, the head of the presidential office said the complete lifting of sanctions is not out of reach. Mahmoud Vizai ruled out reports of disagreements, saying the steps taken so far are promising. He said talks in Vienna are being pursued within the framework of the principles set by Iran. The 4th round of indirect talks on the nuclear deal is set to begin today in Vienna. Meanwhile, Qatar has called on Tehran and Washington to engage in positive discussions. Qatari Foreign Minister said the Gulf states and Iran also need to agree on a format to ease regional tensions. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has called for stronger cooperation among OIC members to combat Islamophobia. He said this during a telephonic conversation with his Indonesian counterpart, Rento Marsudi. Qureshi said Islamabad's efforts are aimed at building understanding for the promotion of interfaith harmony. He hailed Indonesia for backing the adoption of a Pakistan-sponsored resolution at the OIC meeting. Qureshi said a global dialogue among civilizations is needed to promote tolerance. Muslims around the world are marking International QUDS Day in solidarity with the Palestinians against Israeli occupation. Palestinians are observing the day amid fresh forced evictions from Jerusalem's Sheikh Raja neighborhood. Ahead of the day that is marked on the last Friday of Ramadan, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif branded Israel an apartheid regime. In Iraq, many paraded in the capital Baghdad, chanting slogans against Israel and the U.S. and waving flags. In Pakistan, multiple solidarity rallies are planned to voice support for the liberation of the oppressed people of Palestine. Meanwhile, pro-Palestine activists from Afghanistan say the day aims to raise awareness about the Palestinian cause. Egypt and Turkey say they have held frank and in-depth talks during their first official diplomatic meeting since 2013. In a joint statement, the two sides said they addressed bilateral issues as well as a number of regional issues. They said they discussed the situation in Libya, Syria, Iraq, and the need to achieve peace and security in the Eastern Mediterranean region. The statement read the two sides will evaluate the outcome of this round of consultations and agree on the next steps. Turkey has been striving to mend fences with several U.S. allied Arab states, including Egypt. Relations between the regional powers have been stressed since Egypt's armies toppled Mohamed Morsi in 2013. The U.S. says it is committed to keeping the door to NATO membership open to any willing country that meets the criteria. The comments came after Ukraine asked the U.S. and Europe for an accelerated entry into the alliance. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said aspirants need to be able to contribute to security in the Euro-Atlantic area. In a press briefing, she noted that Secretary of State Antony Blinken is currently in Kiev to affirm U.S. support for Ukraine. Earlier, Blinken said the U.S. could increase security assistance to Ukraine after what he called Russia's reckless actions. The UK says its naval ships are preparing to return home from Jersey after French fishermen ended their protest. London said the situation is resolved for now, but Britain remains on standby to assist Jersey. Jersey's External Relations Minister Ian Gorst said discussions with the French crews had been positive. The UK government said it agreed with the Jersey government to call back both of its ships. UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he was pleased the situation in Jersey has been resolved. He said the UK will always stand resolutely by the people of Jersey. French fishermen say their rights are unfairly restricted by licenses issued under the Channel Islands new system. In Scotland, voting in the Parliament election has ended, but the usual overnight count was postponed due to COVID restrictions. A number of people already cast their ballots before polls opened, with over 1 million registered to vote by post. Pro-independent Scottish National Party leader Nicola Sturgeon has termed the election as the most important in her country's history. All the opinion polls suggest the SNP will win a fourth term in office. The election may trigger a slowdown with British Premier Boris Johnson over a new independence referendum. The vote count will start on Friday, with the final result expected on Saturday. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Brazil, at least 25 people, including a policeman, have been killed in a shootout in Rio de Janeiro. The incident took place during a police operation against drug traffickers. Police said the gang also robbed trucks of cargo and held up commuter trains to steal from passengers. Police Chief Ronaldo Oliveira said it was the deadliest operation in Rio State for 16 years. Authorities said they have arrested at least 10 suspects. Police displayed an arsenal of seized weapons at a news conference, including 6 assault rifles and 15 handguns. Protests in Colombia marked their 9th day, with a smaller group of demonstrators in cities including Bogota and Medellin. Marches around the country have been marred by violence and 24 people have died. Officials say after a violent night in Bogota earlier this week, things calmed overnight. Protesters intermittently blocked a major road in the city's north, encouraging stopped vehicles to honk in support. Small groups of protesters also marched in Medellin, but dissipated amid heavy rainfall. Industry groups warned of gasoline shortages across the country following roadblocks. Five European powers have urged Israel to stop building new settlements in the occupied West Bank. France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and Britain said settlements are illegal under the international law. In a statement, the five said such actions undermine efforts to rebuild trust between the parties. They noted the decision to advance settlements would cause further damage to the prospects of a viable Palestinian state. Meanwhile, Israeli troops shot dead a 16-year-old Palestinian boy during clashes in Nablus city. Earlier, the occupation troops wounded 4 Palestinians during a protest in East Jerusalem. The Palestinians are protesting against forceful evictions from East Jerusalem's Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. In Maldives, Parliament Speaker and former President Mohamed Nasheed has been injured in a blast outside his residence. Authorities said the Speaker and at least one of his bodyguards were taken to the hospital for treatment. His Maldivian Democratic Party said the blast went off as Nasheed was getting into his car in the capital, Malé. President Ibu Soli said the investigation into the explosion has been launched. No group has claimed responsibility for the blast. Nasheed was the country's first democratically elected president in 2008 and has been serving as parliament speaker since 2019. Meanwhile, Pakistan's foreign ministry has condemned the attack. In Pakistan, roadside soup kitchens in Islamabad freed tens of thousands of people at Iftar, the evening meal which Muslims end their fast in Ramadan. More in this report by our correspondent Minahil Ahmed.
Moin Khan is living through one of the most challenging times of his life. Like many around the world, the financial impact of COVID-19 restrictions has pushed even a day's food out of his reach. But in Ramadan, he too gets to relive his heydays thanks to the Iftar soup kitchens set up across Pakistan by relief organizations and philanthropists. At several points, dinner is also served.
Due
to COVID-19, I have been struggling for work for a while now. This iftari has been a huge relief for me. I am grateful to the organizers.
The homeless, vendors, guards, laborers, taxi drivers, and even those who are not fasting are welcome with love and respect. Dishes served include traditional delicacies, fruit salads, dates, and juices.
We all come together and cater to 300 to 400 people every day. I believe this is the true essence of Ramadan and Islam. This is what our religion and Prophet, peace be upon him, has taught us.
Roadside iftars are one of the most heartwarming scenes to witness during the month of Ramadan. A sense of belonging and unity can be felt as hundreds gather and break fast together. Minahil Ahmed, Indus News, Islamabad.
Most stocks in the Asia-Pacific are trading higher ahead of the U.S. jobs data. It is expected to cap a series of strong economic reports this week. Seoul's Kospi is leading the gains, rising over 0.5%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index, Australia's ASX 200, and the Nikkei 225 in Japan have also edged up fractionally. Stocks in mainland China, however, have slipped marginally. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.